The rain lashed against the barracks at the elite SEAL training facility, a relentless rhythm matching the pounding in Sarah's heart. The rain lashed against the barracks at the elite SEAL training facility, a relentless rhythm matching the pounding in Sarah's heart. Fresh out of basic training, she was the only woman in her class, a fact that had painted a target on her back from day one. Tonight, that target felt bigger than ever. She'd just finished a grueling day of drills, mud-caked and exhausted, and all she wanted was a hot shower. But as she stepped into the steamy, tiled room, a wall of sneering faces blocked her path. It was Miller, the self-proclaimed leader of the cadet pack, and his two cronies, Thompson and Davis. Well, look what we have here," Miller drawled, his voice echoing off the wet walls. "Lost, little lamb?" Sarah clutched her towel tighter, her knuckles white. She kept her eyes fixed on the floor, trying to project an aura of indifference she was far from feeling. "I'm just here to shower, Miller. Same as you." "Oh, I don't think so," Thompson chimed in, stepping closer. "See, we've been talking. This place, it's for men. For warriors, not for some diversity hire trying to prove a point." The words stung, but Sarah didn't flinch. She'd heard it all before. Every day was a test, not just of physical endurance, but of her will to withstand the constant barrage of doubt and hostility. She had pushed herself harder than anyone, scored top marks in every evaluation, and outlasted half the men who had started with her. Yet, it was never enough. "I've earned my place here, just like everyone else," she said, her voice quiet but firm. Miller let out a short, harsh laugh. "Earned it? Don't make me laugh. You're a weak link, and you're going to get someone killed. Maybe it's time we helped you see that. Show you what happens when you step out of line." The three of them moved, forming a tight circle around her. The air grew thick and suffocating. Sarah's training kicked in. She scanned her surroundings, her mind racing, calculating angles, assessing threats. The space was tight, the floor was slick, and she was outnumbered. But fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. She had been taught that the mind was the ultimate weapon, and hers was razor sharp. She took a slow, deliberate breath, centering herself. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every woman who would come after her. Quitting wasn't an option. "You really don't want to do this," she warned, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous tone that made even Miller pause for a fraction of a second. It was a voice that didn't belong to a fresh-faced cadet. It was a voice that had seen things, done things. That slight hesitation was all she needed. In a blur of motion, Sarah moved. She feinted left, drawing Thompson's attention, then pivoted on the ball of her foot. Using the slick floor to her advantage, she slid low, sweeping Miller's legs out from under him. He hit the wet tiles with a loud, surprised grunt. Before he could recover, Sarah was up, using the wall to launch herself forward. She grabbed Thompson's outstretched arm, twisting it behind his back in a painful joint lock he couldn't escape. He yelped, his bravado vanishing instantly. Davis, the last one standing, stared in disbelief, his mouth hanging open. He had expected a crying, scared girl. He was facing a coiled viper. "Stay down," Sarah commanded Miller, her foot pressed firmly on his chest. She tightened her grip on Thompson's arm, and he whimpered. "I said, You don't want to do this. Just then, the shower room door swung open with a bang. Standing in the doorway was Command Master Chief Thorne, the most feared and respected instructor on the base. His face was a mask of thunder. "What in the blazes is going on in here?" he boomed, his voice shaking the very walls. Miller scrambled to his feet, pointing a trembling finger at Sarah. "Sir, she attacked us. Unprovoked." Thorne's cold, steely eyes swept over the scene. He saw Miller, disheveled and fuming. He saw Thompson, nursing his arm. And he saw Sarah, standing her ground, breathing evenly, not a hint of fear in her eyes. He had been watching her, observing her progress. He knew her file, knew her scores. But there was something else he knew, something the cadets couldn't possibly imagine. He walked slowly towards Sarah, his boots echoing in the sudden silence. The cadets expected him to reprimand her, to expel her on the spot. Miller was already smirking. Thorne stopped directly in front of her. He looked her up and down, his expression unreadable. Then, he did something that made every jaw in the room drop. He snapped to attention and gave her a sharp, perfect salute. "Ma'am," he said, his voice filled with a deference that was utterly shocking. "Apologies for the interruption." The cadets stared, completely bewildered. "Ma'am? Salute? What was happening?" Sarah held his gaze, then gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. "At ease, Master Chief?" Thorne turned his furious gaze on the three cadets. "You three? You have any idea who you just cornered?" Miller, Thompson, and Davis just shook their heads, their faces pale with confusion and a dawning sense of dread. "This is not Cadet Sarah Jenkins," Thorne announced, his voice dripping with ice. "This is Commander Sarah Valkyrie Jenkins. She is a decorated Navy SEAL officer, a legend in the Special Ops community. She holds the record for the fastest completion of the sniper course, has led over 50 high-stakes missions, and has more confirmed successes than all three of you have brain cells combined." A stunned silence fell over the room, broken only by the drip of a faucet. Commander? A legendary SEAL officer? They had been harassing a ghost, an icon of the very world they were so desperate to join. Thorne continued, his voice low and menacing. "She's here undercover. Her mission? To evaluate the training program from the inside, to identify weaknesses. And tonight," he looked at the three of them with pure disgust, "you've just shown her the biggest weakness of all. Your character." The blood drained from Miller's face. He looked at Sarah, truly looked at her for the first time, and saw it. The calm authority, the economy of movement, the eyes that had seen war and weren't intimidated by three loud-mouthed recruits. He saw a commander. "You thought you were testing her," Thorne snarled. "You weren't even on her level. You were the test. And you have failed. Spectacularly." Sarah finally spoke, her voice calm and measured, carrying the weight of command. "Master Chief Thorne, please escort these ... cadets to the base commander's office. I'll be there shortly to file my full report." "Yes, ma'am," Thorne said, grabbing Miller and Thompson by the collars. "You two, move. Davis, you too. Your pathetic little careers are over." As they were frog-marched out of the showers, defeated and humiliated, Sarah was left alone. The steam swirled around her, but the air was clear. She leaned against the cold tiles and finally allowed herself a small, weary sigh. The physical exhaustion was nothing compared to the emotional toll of the past few weeks. She had agreed to this undercover assignment because she believed in the SEALs. She believed in the creed, in the brotherhood. But she also knew that old, toxic attitudes could fester in the shadows, undermining the strength of the entire unit. Her mission was to root it out, to ensure that the next generation of warriors was judged not by their gender, but by their skill, their courage, and their character. Later that evening, in the base commander's office, the fallout was swift and severe. Miller, Thompson, and Davis were dishonorably discharged. The incident sent a shockwave through the entire training facility. No one ever looked at a fellow trainee the same way again. The whispers and sneers directed at anyone deemed different stopped overnight. The next morning, Commander Sarah Jenkins stood before the assembled class, no longer in a cadet's uniform, but in her decorated officer's attire. The trainees, who a day before had seen her as a rival or a nuisance, now looked at her with a mixture of awe, respect, and a healthy dose of fear. "Yesterday," she began, her voice resonating with authority, "you saw a failure of character. Let that be a lesson. In the field, your life depends on the person next to you. You don't get to choose who that person is. You trust the training. You trust the uniform. You trust the warrior, not their gender, not their background." She paused, letting her words sink in. "The enemy doesn't care about our internal squabbles. They only care about our weaknesses. In the moment we let prejudice and ego divide us, we give them the only opening they need. Your real test begins now. It's not just about being strong enough. It's about being good enough to be worthy of the trident you seek." Her speech was short, but its impact was permanent. Commander Valkyrie Jenkins's time at the training facility became a legend, a cautionary tale passed down from one class to the next. She had gone into the lion's den not just to survive, but to tame it. She proved that the most powerful weapon a SEAL possesses isn't a rifle or a knife, but an unbreakable will and a character forged in honor. And that, more than any drill or exercise, was the most important lesson they would ever learn. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.